Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda, and I am here with my March TBR book haul revisit. If you don't know what a book haul revisit is, so here on BookTube, people do, and myself included, we do book hauls every month where we show you all the books that we brought in during that month into our own personal library, whether they were purchased or given to us or whatever. So book haul revisit is where you go back and you look at whatever month, so in this case March, in years past, to see if you've read those books or not. And I started really keeping track of my book hauls in March of 2023, which means this year is the first year we're going to get 2 years worth. Now, it's not the case for this video, but for future months, it is very possible because my book buying is not always under control. But it is possible these videos could get very long. So what I have decided is when I do a book haul revisit and I say that I have read a book or unhauled it or whatever, but it's no longer on my TBR, I will mention it in the book haul revisit where that happened, but then I won't in future ones. So anything that I say in this video that I have read, I don't think I have any that I've unhauled, but any that I've read, I won't be mentioning them again in future years. However, I will down below put the, down in the description box, put a link to last year's book haul revisit. So you can see what I started with in March 2023, and then you can compare it if you are so interested. You can compare it to what I have this year. Because I will tell you, March 2023 is actually a pretty good month in terms of completing things. Because going into March 2025, I mean, up to this video, I only had 2 books left from March 2023 that I had to read. The first one is The Plover by Brian Doyle, and I've read it. This is the follow-up to my favorite novel, Mink River. And because of that, I'm not going to tell you what this book is about, because just telling you what it's about spoils one of the storylines in Mink River. That being said, this book can very easily be read as a standalone. A lot of times when you have sequels to books or follow-ups on books or books in a series, you always have a lot of that previously on sort of stuff in the narrative where the author has to kind of catch you up. That's here in this book, but it's so well written that you don't know you're reading it. So you don't need to know that much from Mink River to get this story, and what you do need to know is right there, and you're not going to feel like he's dumping that information on you to catch you up. Mink River is my favorite novel, so of course I'm going to recommend you read it. And I will say, while you don't need to read Mink River to read The Plover, if you read Mink River, you're definitely going to want to read The Plover. That's all I'll say about that. I did not expect to love The Plover. I expected to really like it. I did not expect to love it, and I loved it. So I read that one, which only leaves one book, and that book is 9 Moons by Gabriela Weiner. I actually don't even remember what this book is about. I do have it. It's on my Kobo. It was recommended to me through the My TBR service, the Book Riot does. It is, I'm not sure. I think Gabrielle Weiner is from somewhere in South America. I don't think she's Central American. I think she's South American. And this is, I believe, a memoir of hers. Very interested in reading it. It is just a matter of getting to it. Too many books, too little time is a refrain you will hear a lot in these videos. So anyway, that's March 2023 for me. So next year, when I do my March book haul revisit, we'll just check in on 9 Moons. And I am making it a personal goal of mine to read 9 Moons before I do the next March book haul revisit, so that we can just clear March 2023 off the books. So let's go to March 2024. So in March 2024, and since this is the first year I'm revisiting it, I have all of the books. But I acquired 16 books. I actually acquired 19, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that story. 16 books. So I'm going to go through these in the order that they came to me. And I first started with an order that I brought in. Oh, excuse me, it looks like there's a couple orders that came in from bookshop.org. The first was a pre-order, and that is Wandering Souls by Tommy Orange. So this is the follow-up to his book There, which I read a few years ago and really loved. The reason I haven't read this is because I felt like I should reread There first. I've kind of gotten to the point now that I think I'm just going to look up a synopsis of it. I do have the audio of There. I could do an audio reread of it, but I'm not really sure I want to wait that much longer. So I think, again, too many books, too little time. Sometimes you got to make choices. I think I might just look up a synopsis of There, so get enough information to go into Wandering Souls. So next I have two memoirs. Well, the next three books, actually, the first two are memoirs and then a novel, came when I was looking up Tin House Books catalog of upcoming books. And there were three that really jumped out at me. And the first two are memoirs. And the first one, I hadn't heard of any of these books. And the first one I sort of got, I didn't know anything about it. I just got it. And it's kind of blown up since then. And that one is Whiskey Tender by Deborah Jackson Taffa. This book was on Barack Obama's, either his books of the year or his summer reading list. And when you hit that list, that's like the list to get on. Like the Barack Obama list is the list. And she made it. This is a memoir of an Indigenous woman. I believe it's more of an upswing than you get in a lot of memoirs by Indigenous people. I don't know much about it beyond that, but I have heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm very interested in reading it. The second book is The Translator's Daughter by Gracelow Prasad. This is a memoir about an immigrant, and I can't tell you more than that. It sounded very interesting when I ordered it. Again, I was just looking through the Tin House catalog and picked it up. And then the third book is a novel, and that is The Woman in the Sable Coat by Elizabeth Brooks. This is a World War II historical novel, and normally I'm careful with those. I don't want to say that I don't read them or I'm sick of them or anything like that. I've realized I'm actually very particular about my World War II novels. And World War II specifically because there's such a market for them, this happens. I've noticed that sometimes World War II gets fetishized in these books and some of these bigger, books. And I don't like that because this was a really horrible time in history. And I think we need to recognize it as a really horrible time. I have read some fantastic World War II fiction. So I'm not saying all of it's like that. I'm just saying I'm careful about the World War II fiction that I read. And this one, something about it, and I don't remember what it was, something about it just jumped out at me. And I said, this is a book that I am going to like. And I'm sure I will when I get to reading it. It's upstairs. Finally, we get to a book that I've actually read. And this is a collection of essays called Thundersong by Sacha Lapointe. So last year, Sarah at Roadworthy and I did this thing where every quarter we read a book by an Indigenous author from the Pacific Northwest. And she suggested this book by Sacha Lapointe. Lapointe is local to her, and she was actually able to go see Lapointe speak before we read this book. This is Sacha Lapointe's second collection of essays, and I actually have her first one, which is Red Paint, I think, and I haven't read it yet, but I have read this one, and I enjoyed it. I had some structural issues with it. Like, I felt sometimes it was a little, like, the choice of essays got to be a little repetitive at times, but generally well-written, very interesting. Yeah, I do recommend it, and I am hoping to get to Red Paint soon. And then I have several books that I got at the Reader's Guide in West Salem. So the Reader's Guide is the bookstore I grew up going to. And when I grew up, it had started in a little storefront on Edgewater Avenue, which doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you know Salem. And then it kind of grew to the next storefront and then grew to the next storefront until it was like 4 storefronts in a row. And you had these little tunnels little weird crowded hallways to get to different sections. And it was very magical feeling. It has since grown out of even that. And now it's just moved down the street to a bigger space. So it doesn't have that sort of delightfully claustrophobic feeling, but it's still one of those great used bookstores where you can find some real gems. And I would say the vast majority of their books are used books. They do keep a couple of new books. Usually if they know that it's going to be like a really I remember they would get some copies of the new Harry Potter books when they came out because I knew they would sell, but their like vast majority is used books. But they do, you know, some displays. And when I walked into it, and this is the first time I've been to this new location. When I walked in, there was a display right there of Brian Doyle books. Oh, this is why I love that store. Brian Doyle, by the way, in case you didn't know this, he wasn't a native Oregonian, but he was an Oregon author. So he was one of our own. And so I have two books from here that I purchased. The first one is Marten. So Marten, the name, and Marten, the animal. And this is, I believe it's YA, but it's set up on Mount Hood, which is our mountain. It's my mountain. I always say, there's my mountain when the mountain's out. But that's another very Oregonian thing to say. The mountain is out. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Just haven't gotten to it. And the other one I got was Chicago, which Sue Jackson recently read with her book club and loved. And I pulled it off my TBR bookshelf as soon as I saw her video, and I moved it down to my immediate TBR bookshelf. So I'm hoping to get to that one soon. Too many books, too little time. A couple other books that I picked up. When we went there, I had just finished reading at least Brooklyn. I might have also finished reading Long Island. I can't remember exactly when Long Island came out. No, it was just Brooklyn. I read Long Island like in the summer, but I wanted something else by Colm Tóibín, and so I picked up Nora Webster. If I remember correctly, because it's a used bookstore, you can't really count on what their inventory is, but I think they only had copies of Brooklyn and Nora Webster, so it made an easy choice for me to pick up Nora Webster. It is historical fiction. It seems kind of Brooklynish to me, so I'm looking forward to reading it. And then I got a book that technically probably shouldn't even be on my TBR because I already owned it on audio. I haven't listened to it, and I haven't read it yet. And everybody has read this book, and I haven't. And that's Circe by Madeline Miller. And I know I need to read it. I know. But I have it now, and now I have my choice. I can listen to it or I can read it. Because there you go. I have both ways of doing it. And then I also picked up An Experiment in Love by Hilary Mantel. I believe that's a novel that she wrote. I'll have to double check. I have some other Hilary Mantels up on my shelf. There's memoir and short story collection. I think this one's a novel, but I was looking, Hilary Mantel was on my list of authors to go see if they had anything by, and they did. So I picked it up. That was the whole extent of my investigating this book. And now I have two books that I got from the indie press list from that month. And I forgot to check to see which bookstore it was, but I'm going to put it right down here. So the indie press list, if you are a Patreon of the Currently Reading podcast, every month they do what's called the indie press list, where they go to an independent bookstore and they have the bookstore select 6 books, or then if you're a super bookish friend or bookish, if you pay a little bit more for the next tier up, you can get a whole other set of books. But I ordered 2 books off that month's list. And the first one is The Square of Sevens by Laura Robinson Shepard. This is a historical fantasy mystery. I had hoped to read it last summer for Big Book Summer. Didn't happen. Too many books, too little time. I'm hoping to get to it this year. So, because it does look really interesting. And it's also, it's a deceptively long book because it doesn't look like a long book, but then it's like over 500 pages, which is weird. But anyway, the other book was already on my radar when it came up on the indie press list. And that's because Brett at Brett's Book Stacks had talked about it. And that's Ours by Philip B. Williams. Again, I had hoped to get to it last summer during Big Book Summer. Happen. Too many books, too little time. But I'm still very interested in reading it. I think Ellen at the Ellen Made Book Club is currently reading it or has been trying to read it, or I don't think have you finished it, Ellen? I don't know. Anyway, that's hopefully going to happen this summer as well. So here's where I say I got 16 books. No, I got 19 books. For Book of the Month that month, I ordered 3 books. I ordered my monthly book, an add-on, and then in March, Book of the Month members get sort of a free add-on that's one of the top 5 books of the previous year. They sent me 2 boxes, like 2 identical boxes. So I got each of these books twice. I asked them, do you want me to send these books back? And they said, no, just do whatever with them. So I gave these books to Bookish Best Friend. So she's had them too, but I have read one of them. The first one I got was my monthly selection, which is The Great Divide by Cristina Henríquez. So this is the second time I have filmed this video because I made a lot of mistakes the first one, and this was one of them. I had read a previous book by Cristina Henríquez, but it wasn't the book I mentioned in that first video. I read the Book of Unknown Americans by her, which I did really enjoy. For some reason, I thought it was another book that I had read that she wrote, but it's not. But anyway, this book, The Great Divide, is about the building of the Panama Canal, historical fiction. I am hoping to read it for Latinx Heritage Month, which is September 15th to October 15th. I might read it before then if I can't wait. We'll see. But I kind of have it on the list for that, as do I for the second book I have here, which is Anita Del Monte Laughs Last. Now, I actually did have this on my February TBR because Mariandria at Books and Bocadillos, her book club was doing Olga Dies Dreaming by Xochitl Gonzalez, and I had already read that. So I said, oh, well, they're reading that. I'm just going to read Xochitl Gonzalez's next book, which is Anita Del Monte. And I didn't get to it, but I also decided that I wanted to hold this for Latinx Heritage Month. So that is going to be read. Both of those books are going to be read later this year. Again, September 15th to October 15th. Now, the third book I did read, and that is Weyward by Emilia Hart. This is the one that I chose from like their top 5 books of the year. It's not the one that won. I can't remember what one. It doesn't matter. But this is the one I chose. I took it on vacation with me to Arizona, the vacation that went all sorts of ways. I enjoyed it. It was fine for vacation. Didn't rock my world. It's a sort of historical thing. It's got witches through 3 different generations of witches in a house. And there are a lot of books with that same premise, honestly. And it was fine for vacation. It did not stick with me. It's great. I left it in Arizona at my father's house in the guest room. He has a basket. Actually, my mother had it. I think my father doesn't even look at it. But there's some magazines in it. And then I leave books for, other people, which is family, to come visit to read. And so I put it in there. And it actually has a chance of being read because the other books I have there are Hope Never Dies and Hope Rides Again and Feel the Burn, all by Andrew Schaefer. And if you don't know what those are, the first 2 are the Obama-Biden mysteries. And the third one, is a cozy mystery starring Bernie Sanders. And most of my family's MAGA, so I'm just punking them. And sometimes I'll go when the books are like buried underneath everything else. I put them back on top for the next person. I'm sure they love me. But as I said, someone would read Weyward because it's very inoffensive compared to those other books. So I have 2 books left. The next one is Cross Stitch by Jazmina Barrera. I heard about this book from Sarah at Eyes on Indie. This is a Mexican novel and it is translated. And it's about 4 friends reconnecting as adults, I believe. Part of me wants to hold this for Latinx History Month, but the other part of me this book feels like summer. So I am going to read this year. I'm not sure if I'm going to read it during the summer or Latinx History Month. We'll see. We'll see how that cookie crumbles. And then finally, I have a book that I did not actually purchase. And I got this from Bookish Best Friend. When I gave her 3 books, she gave me 1. I'm not holding it against her. No, it's fine. It's fine. She gave me her copy of Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. So this is Indigenous horror. The author is Indigenous Canadian. Bookish Best Friend was up in Canada visiting family. She's Canadian. She's dual citizenship, actually. And she brought it back. And so this is the Canadian paperback version. Woohoo. It is currently down on my priority TBR list because I think it was February when I did my TBR game. That's the one that I pulled, but I'm holding it for spooky season. So again, will be read, but later this year. So of the 16 books, I have read 2. So not as good as March 2023. However, a lot of these I have plans to read. I don't know if I'm going to read them all before the next one, but you know, I'm going into 2025 now with 15 books, so 14 plus 1. I don't think I'm going to get to all 15, but I'm hoping to make a good chunk out of it. So those, I will not be talking again about the Plover, Thundersong, or Weyward because they're off my TBR now. If you want to see my originals, go down and look down in the March 2023 book haul, or last year's book haul revisit. And then, so next year we'll just see the ones that I have not read yet. If you are interested in doing a buddy read of any of these books that, I keep shaking my phone, I'm sorry. Any of these books that I haven't read yet, please let me know because buddy reads will get me to read them. I'm always open for buddy reads. And if you have any thoughts on those, let me know what you think of them. Anyway, like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.